Amazing.
And welcome to episode 179 of the most must-see award-winning show to ever hit the Bedford TV airwaves, or any airwaves for that matter. North, south, east, west, backwards, frontwards, sideways, diagonally, any which way you look at it, all around the world. The Wrestling Kennection. I'm your host, your connection to the wrestling world, the fedorable felon, the perfect Ken, your broken bro, Ken Hill, at your service today, delivering to you all the news in professional wrestling. Alongside me in the studio is your current WK King of Pay-Per-View champion, Mr. Greg Dolan. Sadly, Julie and Nick could not be in, but Greg and I, even though we're half here, promise to deliver on twice the fun.
I'll do my best.
I know you will, Greg, and that's probably the least we can ask of you. Okay, so anyway, thought I'd change things up differently. SummerSlam is coming up around the corner, but July was a month full of wrestling-related news. We got some interesting pieces to sort through here. We'll kick things off with a little bit of interesting news concerning one Universal Champion, Brock Lesnar. Now, if you are either a WWE or a UFC fan, you've seen the news where Jon Jones has been, for the past couple of weeks, calling out Lesnar for a big-time fight, even though Jones is known for being strictly a light heavyweight fighter, a light heavyweight champion looking to move into the heavyweight division, whereas Lesnar has been strictly heavyweight division and has, for the better part of his time in UFC, dominated it. So the question here is now, how does this tie in to Lesnar's appearance at SummerSlam? Well, interesting to note is that this past Monday on Raw, Paul Heyman made it quite clear to General Manager Kurt Angle that if Lesnar was to lose the Universal Championship at SummerSlam in his fatal four-way match versus Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns, and Samoa Joe, that Lesnar along with Heyman will leave the WWE. Now, that's interesting. That's where this gets interesting. Now, for all we know, I mean, this could happen. A fatal four-way. It would be preposterously easy for Lesnar to lose. I mean, he doesn't have to be pinned to be involved. There's even a big-time announcement coming up next Monday on Raw, courtesy of Paul Heyman, which may very well be that this is made into a fatal four-way elimination match, which means that Lesnar, all three of Lesnar's opponents could gang up on him in the first couple of minutes, hit him with all their big stuff, and send Lesnar packing, even before the crowds had a chance to rest and sit down. So that's where this all gets interesting. Now, on one hand, it would be very easy. On the other hand, we know how Heyman likes to stir things up. We know how there's always this big social media buzz going these big summer events. You like to tease them, poke and prod the audience, get them all hyped up for some big showdown. Now, that's true, but at the same time, How do we know it isn't just that? How do we know it isn't just a big tease right here? How do we know that Lesnar wouldn't be able to manage to do both WWE and UFC? He's done it before. Lesnar's made appearances in UFC while still contracted WWE, so it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for Lesnar to retain at SummerSlam, then take on Jon Jones down the line. I mean, Greg, you've been following this along with me. I mean, do you think that they may just like go the straight route here, have Lesnar lose, or do you feel like Heyman and do you feel like everyone here is just kind of like it feels like there's just one big swerve coming up where Lesnar will do both WWE and UFC?
I think he's going to lose. I think that the Jones fight, if he ends up doing it, is such a big time, such a big fight that I think he'd have to commit to it full time. I think Jones is the one guy who can really match up well against Lesnar and give him a run for his money. I think Jones would be favored in the fight, and I think that Brock would be a little bit crazy to not put everything he has into it.
That much is true. I mean, there's.
Hold on, Ken. Your mic's needs some batteries. Give me a sec.
Oh, how long was I exactly out for?
Like 10 seconds.
10 seconds. All right.
Right when I said it.
All right. So pretty much like I was saying here, this is one time where I kind of follow your take on this because like aside from Punk's brief foray into UFC and Lesnar's part-time status in UFC, I haven't been a big follower of mixed martial arts to be perfectly honest. So now where I'm coming from on this. Like I said, I mean, it would certainly behoove Lesnar to put everything he has into getting ready for Jones. At the same time, we've seen how confident Lesnar can be. We know. I mean, we've seen him multitask here. We've seen it, like I said, last year we saw him do something similar to this, where he committed to an appearance in UFC while he was still contracted to WWE. I mean, so once again, whereas Jones would be, obviously, like you said, a much more considerable threat than anyone Lesnar's faced before. At the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if Lesnar's confident enough that he can just say, "Oh, forget it. I did WWE and UFC before. I'll do it again." So I'm kind of on the fence about this.
Yeah, this is a tough call.
I mean, it's certainly going to be a tough call come SummerSlam, and we have to actually do predictions for the main event. I mean, how were you going to be able to call that? I mean, you got Heyman calling for Joe to win the championship. You got fans calling for either Strowman or Reigns to win the championship. I'm calling it that that Lesnar may well be a big swerve and Lesnar's going to retain. Like you're literally going at odds and ends right here with this match. You really have nowhere to call it, and we don't even know if this is going to be a straight up fatal 4-way match or if it'll be an elimination match. So there's a lot of buzz. There's a lot of possibility going in this match, and we won't know until like we're in the home stretch for SummerSlam, and we find out what's the absolute lowdown on this. I mean, as far as this goes, I mean, like I said, just to close it out, I think Lesnar could take Jones. I don't doubt that. I think the key is that Lesnar, like you said, cannot underestimate Jones.
I think Jones is the favorite, but Lesnar is such a unique physical talent that he could certainly win.
So that's another one where I'm up in the air on because I think that fight could go either way. All right, so the next piece of news right here, let's see, is that you had Shinsuke beating John Cena in the main event to determine who would face WWE Champion Jinder Mahal for the WWE title at SummerSlam. Now, a lot of people were thinking, oh, this is where, they're going to put John into the mix. They're going to throw John back into the mix, even after his dismal flag match with Rusev. They're going to have him go up against Mahal, America versus India, America rah, rah, rah. Cena wins his 17th title, And then they likely have Corbin cut out and cut it short, even though it would mean a record-breaking 17th title. Do they go with that? No. Ends up being Shinsuke beats Cena clean as a whistle. And I mean, in pretty decisive fashion, too. He beat him with one Kinshasa. Oh.
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Oh, okay. All right. So anyway, like, sorry, like I was saying. So he beat him rather decisively. And, I mean, never mind that this was after Cena got dumped right on the back of his neck and head with a reverse exploder suplex, which, I mean, I was kind of afraid to show this just because
it was pretty bad.
It was brutal. I mean, you even had Shinsuke apologizing after the match, and John said, "Oh yeah, no big deal." I mean, it happens, but still a pretty scary moment. But now I think Shinsuke actually makes a very interesting foil for Mahal right here for a number of reasons. One, I mean, Shinsuke's not a U.S.-born superstar like Mahal. He's Japanese-born, but he's far more well-received than Mahal is. Whereas Mahal he's hard-body Mahal. He's had to work and strive and scratch and claw for everything that he's earned. Shinsuke has kind of gone things about a more casual, relaxed way. It's not to say that he hasn't earned things, but he approaches everything in a much more casual, almost lackadaisical manner. Not to say that Shinsuke is lackadaisical in nature, just that's how he tends to approach some things. Whereas you have Mahal, who's, again, not universally received by fans. The fans adore Shinsuke. He's got a natural charisma, whereas Mahal doesn't. Shinsuke was already an established main eventer over in Japan for New Japan Pro Wrestling, taking on the likes of AJ Styles and training with Brock Lesnar, whereas Mahal has only come into note since earlier this year. That's been it. I mean, before that, Mahal was like we've talked about, a perennial jobber. So I think, even though it's not a dream match like we had with Shinsuke versus Cena, it's a much more solid match in terms of how much of a perfect foil Shinsuke proves to be for Mahal. Just how many odds and ends these two have both in common and apart from each other. Now, is that to say that I don't see where this match is going? No. Yeah, I mean, it's the fact is you got Shinsuke coming out on top over Baron Corbin in their most recent in their feud. Mahal's coming off of his let's just face it. It was a dismal feud with Randy Orton, who's more or less been phoning it in since his feud with Lesnar his feud with Bray Wyatt went south earlier this year at WrestleMania. I mean, so basically, they're looking to give both of these guys the boost they need. Mahal desperately needs a good opponent, a motivated opponent, and Shinsuke's that guy. I mean, people have been waiting for WWE to get fully behind Shinsuke, give him the push he deserves towards big-time championship main event, and you know what? Here it is. SummerSlam, WWE's second biggest pay-per-view. Going for the WWE title. Doesn't get any bigger than that. And it shows that WWE recognizes that Shinsuke is a big name, big time superstar, and someone that they need to get behind and capitalize on his popularity. Now, is that to say that he'll be triumphant over Mahal? I'd say so right now. The early predictions look like that this is going to be pretty cut and dry right here. The Mahal experiment, I mean, Greg, if you want to chime in on this, it hasn't metered out, I think, as well as WWE was hoping it to. I feel like they've kind of gone too far in the direction of, him being the whole, anti-U.S., having the whole anti-U.S. sentiment, like being, the 1.3 billion people of India. I mean, you're going too much with the whole foreign heel shtick right here. Instead of just him being prideful about his nation, you have him being like almost a zealot, a zealous Indian native. I mean, even though he's not even a native of India in real life. I mean, he's only born by way of India, not actually in there. So, I mean, it just comes off as hollow. It comes off, I mean, basically as about as fake as Mahal's muscles, more or less. So, my early prediction, I think Shinsuke's going to take it here. I mean, they tried doing something different. I give WWE credit for doing this. They tried doing something different with Mahal right here, but his feud with Orton was mediocre to start, and it just kind of died into Punjabi prison. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. I mean, the Punjabi prison match was horrible. It basically highlighted what little offense Mahal actually has in his repertoire, and the fact is that once again, I mean, yes, he's a cowardly heel who uses his lackeys to help him retain the championship. But here's the thing: you've had those kind of superstars who've won matches on their own to show that when the chips are down, they can get stuff done on their own, like Edge, like Seth Rollins. You've had champions prove they can win big matches on their own, and so far they haven't proven that with Mahal. So again, I think Shinsuke will take this come SummerSlam. But that being said, though, we have another match made: Baron Corbin versus John Cena. Corbin being the Money in the Bank briefcase holder. It just seems pretty cut and dry that Corbin will most likely lose to Cena to give Cena a little boost coming out of his loss to Shinsuke, and then Corbin cashes in when Shinsuke has his big moment at SummerSlam and wins the WWE title. And then we have the big title feud for the second half of 2017, where hopefully Corbin and Shinsuke will be more motivated to put on like a match we know these two are capable, a good match we know these two are capable of. All right, so moving on from there. Now this is the shocking news to me, and I couldn't believe when I first read up on this. Talking Smack, which Greg, you and I and Julie, we've all gushed about what a great show it was, how it proved to be such a great verbal platform for stars like, especially like The Miz, like Baron Corbin. I mean, ends up being canceled. I mean, this was supposedly one of WWE's summertime cost-cutting measures since revenue has been down, since like they've had to cut pyro, they've had to cut travel expenses, and they've had to release a couple of low-level superstars like the first Chinese-born WWE superstar Ho Ho Lun, like Eva Marie, and canceling Talking Smack, even though we found out later that this wasn't merely just a cost-cutting measure by WWE. It's because big surprise, Vince McMahon was not a fan of the unscripted nature of Talking Smack and how it could get a little too, I guess, like you said, too unscripted, like too talkative, too unusual. And that's what once again, I mean, this is more done, not because it was a cost-cutting measure, but according to the whims of Vince McMahon, who simply didn't understand why the show was so fun. It's because you didn't have every single aspect of it scripted, which is the same problem. You've had superstars who sound so stilted and uninteresting on SmackDown and Raw, but when you give them a chance to express themselves, like on Raw Talk and Talking Smack, they come across much more interesting and someone that the fans are more willing to emotionally and mentally invest in. And instead now it's just going to be for after pay-per-views, but eventually it's just going to fade away into the sunset. Like not even that. It's not even going to get it's not even going to get a dignified exit. It's just going to be like just fades into the background, which I don't get. Because one of the big things that Greg, that you and I talked about was when Miz had his big time promo against Daniel Bryan, and showed us that, hey, Miz cares. It's just like, where's this Miz been for the last 2-3 years? This guy is motivated. This guy wants to be here, wants to be Intercontinental Champion, is tired of having his style ridiculed and mocked by those who can't be in the ring themselves, like Daniel Bryan. I mean, this promo got us to look at people like Miz, like superstars like Miz, with a much more critical eye and realize that they have far much to offer than what we see from them on regular WWE programming. Greg, what do you think about this? I know we're running a little short on time, but
I think they wasted a good opportunity to build some of their superstars to save a little money, a little penny wise, pound foolish.
Exactly, because they don't get a chance to express themselves fully. I mean, they're basically just given a full-on script for every show, and here, basically, they're just given bullet points. This is like goes back to the John Morrison example I pointed out a few weeks ago, where he based on ECW when he was on the ECW program when it was still on the air. He only had a list of bullet points, and and his promos came up so much more fluid and better sounding and had better creative flow to them. Whereas on Raw, he was so much more stilted and uninteresting. He was basically just the guy that did parkour. Like nothing, there was nothing else to him, which boggled my mind. Basically, any program that doesn't have Vince at the controls is far more interesting and entertaining because it doesn't contain the kind of crass, like low-level humor and stilted dialogue that for some reason Vince and company find hilarious. This is basically a dead horse topic. We've been talking about this for weeks, for months, or seemingly the last couple of years about how Vince doesn't know the product anymore, how he's not the creative genius we came to know him as throughout the 90s and the early 2000s. He's not that same creative genius anymore because he refuses to keep up with the times. He refuses to follow the trends that are going on in WWE today. It's caused a lot of backlash for him, for the company, for the writers. It's stilted superstars' careers or potential careers because supposedly Vince didn't know the true reasoning behind their gimmicks and didn't recognize what was going on with them. Vince I know he's a hard-working guy. No one can take that away from Vince, but he either needs to start following these trends or hand the reins off to someone, say, like Triple H, who gets today's crop of superstars, get them, recognize the trends that are going on in social media today, and capitalize on them. Otherwise, Vince needs to take his gentle walk off into the sunset, or he's going to have an undignified end to what's been an undignified career for the past, for nearly 20 years. All right, so that's all for that's all for the Wrestling Connection. Like I said, we'll be taking a closer look at SummerSlam in the next week or so. For Greg Dolan and myself here at Bedford TV for the Wrestling Connection, reminding you as always to be connected, get connected, and stay connected. Have a good weekend, ladies and gentlemen.